This is episode 61 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with my guest, Alex Burnham. She has only been investing for 3 years, but it's been an interesting 3 years. She's also a general dentist, so we're going to go over a lot of things about holding a job and investing. She's focused on short-term and midterm right now. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Jonathan. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm really excited.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear about your journey. I like to always start here. Before you got into it and when you were younger, like even like getting into the higher teens, were you even interested in real estate?
Not even on my radar. I will tell you that nothing that I thought about was real estate at all.
Yeah, the reason I ask, and honestly, I think we're probably at like 60 to 70% of people answer like that. I think it makes it accessible to listeners to know they don't have to have a lifetime interest. You know, I've been involved in it my whole life, but you don't have to spend your whole childhood just pining away for investing. So how did you end up coming to real estate as an investment portal?
Well, I was actually just researching after I started my career. I wanted to kind of invest in anything, honestly. And I kind of researched a little bit. I looked at stocks, I looked at real estate, I looked at just other avenues. And I didn't really understand the other avenues as well as real estate. It just seemed so much very simple and also tangible because you can see an asset is right in front of you. And you see the value add if if you do rehab or anything to that. And it was just, again, something that I related to, and I guess, really enjoyed, learning about.
Was it the tangibility factor? I think is so important. Was it a little bit less risky knowing that you could go touch it? You know, like with stocks, I've been investing in stocks my whole life too, but like, that's just like, it's like money. It's just in the air. I don't know if it
Yeah.
exists. Was it something that was more comforting for you to know, like, well, if I'm going to get into this new arena, I can go touch it, fix it, it can increase in value and I can actually see it.
Yeah, exactly. And truthfully, like, you invest money in stocks or even crypto or something, but you just look at your phone and just see it go up or down, right? Like you don't really have something right in front of you that you can say, oh, that's mine, and look at
Yeah.
how much I added to this,
Yeah.
and all that.
Okay, so your husband's from Kansas City. But
He's
that's a
from
really
Kansas.
smart thing. A lot of times, new investors, especially in the forums, they always ask, like, "How do I pick a first market?" And something that I always said is something that you did. It's make a list of all the places that you live, and then make a list where your best family and friends have lived. So at least you have
Mhm.
a slight competitive advantage. You're not going in blind to a market. Did that help you? That your husband could say, like, "Well, I know that area." At
Yeah,
least
definitely.
you're ahead.
Yeah, definitely. So, we lived in Chicago at the time. Like I said, we're all over the place.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we lived in Chicago for 5 years, and then I'm from Arizona. So the price points in those areas for my first deal, I just wasn't comfortable
Yeah.
with because I wanted to make sure I really understood it before I jumped into something higher price. So my husband's from Kansas City, which is just a lower, easier to get into than the other two. So that's why I chose that. And it was easier because he's from there. So I looked specifically in those neighborhoods that he lived in and also somewhere that is very close to the hospitals and downtown and things like that.
What was your original plan? Were you already thinking midterm rentals because you talked about hospitals, or were you just thinking long term to start?
Truthfully, I was thinking long term. I was thinking medical school students who are in
Yeah,
school for 4 years, nursing students, dental students, because all those schools are right across the street from this neighborhood. So
yeah,
that's what I was mostly thinking.
yeah. That's a
Mhm.
great thought. I mean, I think a lot of people think of like university investors as like college kids, like, doing
Mhm.
keg stands all the time, but they forget about graduate schools, doctorate degrees. Like those are
Sure.
the best tenants. What's better than medical school, tenants? They're never home.
Yeah.
They're always tired. They're never going to party. Like you can't get a better tenant, which is also why midterm rentals for travels nurses have done so well. They're so
Mhm.
busy. There's no party atmosphere. You're saving the wear and tear on the property. So how was it, at least with those 3, and then we can get into like long term where you're at now, but how was it like being a landlord for the first time? I think some people think it's going to be easy, but it's not the easiest thing in the world.
Well, we at first, so we hired property managers to manage them. And we had our first turnover with the first one. And I mean, when they told me how they left the place, it was a disaster, right? Like they still they left a bowl of food in the microwave. It's like they didn't even they were running. I thought
Middle
they
of
were
the
like
night.
running.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like the cat cage was still there. So I thought maybe the cat was still in the house type thing. But, so like, we hired property managers for the long term. And because I was heavily reading and started pivoting to short term rentals.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was like, I don't want to kind of, I know long term, you're supposed to just sign technically you're supposed to just sign the contract and hopefully you don't hear from them for a while. But I just didn't want to deal with that
Yeah.
portion of it. So we did hire property managers to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. And how's property management overall been for you? It's not always the easiest thing to hire out because some people think that hiring property management means it's completely passive, but they still have to run most decisions by you. So,
Yeah, definitely. We actually have gone through a couple of management companies. So I'm not going to lie. It's probably
yeah.
been 3 already in 3 years. So it has been a little bit challenging, especially because you're trusting these people to actually, because we want to be like great landlords as
Yeah.
well. We don't want them to live in, if there's an issue, 100% we will fix it. We just need to know type thing. And sometimes the property management won't tell you, or they think it's,
Exactly.
something not a big deal, but it might be a big deal for the tenants. And like I said, we've been tenants because we haven't purchased our primary. So I know how important it is to be there for your tenants if something happens, and even if it's not a true emergency.
So
Yeah.
you have the 3 in Kansas City, and then how do you start to expand from there into other markets and make that decision for short term, midterm, and other areas?
Yeah. So after that, we kind of exhausted all of our capital into those 3 properties because we did rehab the other 2. And those ones, the long-term ones, were just conventional, type things. So I read about partnerships.
Yeah.
Honestly, things that I read, I really try to implement or do just so I can have experience and say, hey, I did it, but this didn't work, or I did it and it really worked. And so I tried to explore partnerships, and I found my husband found the property in Phoenix, Arizona, where I'm from. And we were really big because we lived in Chicago. We were really big on finding properties and where we were from.
Yeah.
So when we travel there,
Great
tax
idea.
deductions, all
Yeah.
that stuff. And we get to see our families. So my next my next place was in Arizona. He found it. I found a partner and we were able to purchase that one. And I wanted to pivot to short-term rental. So this one was focused to be a short-term rental.
Yeah, and owning short terms also gives you the opportunity to use it when you want. Like you said,
Yeah.
my sister and I were doing short term rentals, 20 years ago, and a lot of the, before Airbnb existed, it was because we just wanted to have places we could go to. And we would always do
Yeah.
them in shorter terms on Verbo at the time or HomeAway. Um, that's an opportunity that's there. It's a great idea. If you have one close to family, you can block off the times when you're going to be there, or you can let other relatives go. And that's a benefit, of being close, and
Yeah.
also recoup that in the money because you should be able to 2 or 3x what you would for your normal monthly rent.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Did it help though, also knowing that you're from there? Again, you're using these same strategies that I think are so important. You're not picking markets to start where you don't know anybody or anything
Mhm.
about the market. So you're not starting from scratch.
Yeah, it really helped because I knew which areas not really to look at, or ones that have a lot of potential long term. So I knew which areas to look at, and it really, really helped.